Did your quarterback let you down in week 14? Who can we trust here in week 15? That's the question. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. Week 15 of the fantasy football season. Playoffs are in full swing. Even if you're not fighting for the championship, you're still setting that lineup, trying to get a win every single week. Play the spoiler if you have to. I'm going to break down the top 15 quarterbacks this week for week 15. Had a little bit of there wasn't hate last week, but I had some messages saying, man, how could you leave out Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins from your top 15? How could you do that last week? Then when Monday Night Football came, you saw exactly why. Let's see what's going on here for week 15 and who can we trust to get into our fantasy lineups and hopefully carry us to that championship. All right, number one is going to be Patrick Mahomes, and I'm sure you guys have seen it by now. That no-look pass, going across the middle to a receiver, caught the defensive off guard. I mean, this was definitely one of those throws that make you just go, wow, this kid can really do everything, and he's been doing it all season long. Definitely something that he can do going forward also. That was a tough matchup that he had up against one of the toughest defenses in the Baltimore Ravens. Threw for 377 and 2 touchdowns. There were some people that were worried about starting him last week, and then he goes up there, puts up a great game, really helped people a lot this week. Another difficult matchup on paper this week, going against the Chargers, who are the number 4th ranked defense against opposing quarterbacks, allowing just 17 points a game. However, 2 out of their last 3 games have been against Josh Rosen and Jeff Driscoll. I'm pretty sure that helped those numbers a little bit. Still love Patrick Mahomes. Going to be number 1 for me again here in week 15. I mean, I like the potential for this game so much, I actually put Phillip Rivers at number 2 this week, going up against these Kansas City Chiefs. There could really be some fireworks in this game. A lot of offense, a lot of throwing, especially if there's no Melvin Gordon. We already know there's no Kareem Hunt. I can't see Spencer Ware and Justin Jackson completely taking over the game. I look for Patrick Mahomes and Phillip Rivers to be heavily involved in the passing game this week, and this could turn into one of those games where we see a lot of points and a lot of yardage quickly. Phillip Rivers, a little bit of a letdown last week, still threw for 220 yards and a touchdown. Just was nothing crazy about it. Didn't have any big game. Was a solid floor play here for week 14. Really like the upside for week 15, going against the Chiefs, who allow right now 27 points per game to opposing quarterbacks. It's a great start for me. Phillip Rivers, number 2 this week. Number 3 is going to be Jared Goff of the Los Angeles Rams, and there's nobody looking forward to getting back to Los Angeles right now more than Jared Goff. Horrible road game. A couple road games there for him these last 2 weeks, where he had a combined 387 yards, just 1 touchdown, and 5 interceptions over his last 2 games. Now he gets to come back home, and he gets to face the Philadelphia Eagles defense, which is really lacking at this point. They've given up a total of 8 touchdowns through the air over their past 4 games. Definitely a defense that's struggling with injuries at this point. Last week, they got absolutely torched by Dak Prescott, 455 yards, 3 touchdowns. And I guess you can throw Amari Cooper's name into part of that mix. Definitely been a defense that has been very vulnerable through the air as of late. Jared Goff and that Los Angeles Rams offense needs to get back on track. They need to start getting some momentum moving towards the playoffs. That starts this week, going back at home in Los Angeles against these Eagles. Number 4 is another letdown of last week, and it's Drew Brees of the New Orleans Saints. Now, last week, 200 yards, 1 touchdown against the Tampa Bay Bucks defense, which we expected more out of Drew last week. He's kind of struggled the last 2 games here, and it's really hurt fantasy players down the stretch here. Now, he gets to go into Carolina and face the Panthers, a team which he has historically dominated over the past. The Panthers have allowed 11 passing touchdowns over their last 5 games, and they're giving up on average 25 points to opposing quarterbacks. Last week, against the Browns, Baker Mayfield put up 238 and a touchdown. The week before that, Jameis, 249, 2 touchdowns. Russell Wilson, 339, 2 touchdowns. You can see that these quarterbacks have some positive games against this Carolina defense, and they do it a lot in the second half. I mentioned that last week. Carolina plays great in the first half, kind of struggles down the stretch. I'll take garbage points if I have to get them. Love Drew Brees again this week. A little bit higher upside, I believe, this week than it was last week, even though the matchup is a little bit more difficult. Number 5 is Deshaun Watson, and even though his ceiling hasn't been really high lately, he's been playing very good football. He has no interceptions, no turnovers, in fact, the last 3 weeks. The problem is the touchdown passes haven't really been there. Only 4 touchdown passes over his last 3 games, but he still has that rushing upside week to week. This past week, only 5 rush attempts for 35 yards, but just 2 weeks ago, back in week 12, he had 9 carries for 70 yards and a touchdown. Somebody who has that high upside, and now they're going up against the New York Jets, who just got torched on the ground by Josh Allen. Definitely a positive game script for Deshaun Watson. I expect them to be ahead in this game. The New York Jets have allowed multiple touchdown passes 3 out of their last 4 games, giving up over 21 points a game. It's a great matchup. He's a solid play, a safer play in my opinion here for week 15. Number 6 is going to be Andrew Luck of the Indianapolis Colts, and he was somewhat back to form this past week. 399 yards, 2 touchdowns, did have 1 interception, but he was back to throwing the ball and throwing the ball a lot. Now, he gets a difficult matchup of the Dallas Cowboys, currently 10th against opposing quarterbacks, giving up under 20 points per game. However, in the past 3 weeks, they have given up 6 passing touchdowns, so they're not absolutely impenetrable through the air. I do expect a lot more throwing than I do running from the Indianapolis Colts this week, making Andrew Luck another safe play. He's going to be quarterback 6 this week in week 15. Number 7 is Big Ben, and this one has an asterisk next to it because we really don't know what's going to happen with him until later on in the week. He did sustain that rib injury, and how much that limits him going forward, we need to wait and see. But it is a great matchup for him if he's able to go against a rival New England Patriots team who just got absolutely torched through the air. I can't really say torched, but they gave up 265 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air to the Miami Dolphins. If that's the case, I really like the upside of the Pittsburgh Steelers offense way more than the Dolphins. This could be a great game, but is Big Ben 100% healthy? We need to wait and find out until later in the week. He could be moving down these rankings. All right, number 8 is going to be Russell Wilson. He's back in the top 15. He wasn't there last week, and rightfully so. Why? He had 72 passing yards last week. Not in like the first quarter or the first half. For the game, he had 72 passing yards, no touchdowns against the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the San Francisco 49ers, a little bit better of a matchup, I would say, for Russell Wilson. They're giving up over 25 points per game. They've given up 7 passing touchdowns over their last 3 weeks. A lot better matchup. He always has that rushing upside. I like Russell Wilson in a bounce-back game this week, week 15. Number 9 is Tom Brady, and here comes the offense of the New England Patriots. End of season, kind of like it always does. Now, against the Miami Dolphins last week, 358 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air for Tom Brady, and they lost. They're not going to be too happy once they get on the road. They're going to be going up against a tough Pittsburgh defense. However, they are only 21st against opposing quarterbacks, giving up just over 23 points per game. They've allowed multiple touchdown passes 3 straight weeks. There could be a lot of offense in this game. It's really going to depend on the quarterback on the other side of the football, if Big Ben plays or not. But I like Tom Brady. Right now I have him as QB 9. But by the end of the week, depending on what we hear about some of these quarterbacks above him, he could start slowly creeping back up the rankings. Number 10 is going to be Dak Prescott. He's finally cracked into the top 10, and he deserves it. He's been playing great football as of late. Last week against the Philadelphia Eagles, lack of a secondary is what I like to call it. 455 yards, 3 touchdowns. Did have 3 turnovers with 2 picks and a fumble, which I don't really like to see, but that's not the norm for Dak Prescott. He's been playing great football as of late, and he also is somebody who has that rushing upside. He had 3 rushing touchdowns in his last 5 games, but the Colts is a little bit more difficult of a matchup this week. Currently 11th against opposing quarterbacks, giving up right around 20 points per game. They have given up 3 passing touchdowns over their last 2 weeks, so they've been playing pretty solid football there for the Colts. However, Dak Prescott, with his newfound love of Amari Cooper, Zeke in that backfield, catching passes, opening up the run game, love this offense going forward. Dak Prescott could easily outperform this number 10 ranking that I've given him here for Week 15. Number 11 is Cam Newton, and he's starting to slide down the rankings. I'm really starting to wonder if there's more to this shoulder injury than's really being reported at this point. Last week, Cam Newton in a decent matchup against the Cleveland Browns, 265 yards, not bad through the air, but no touchdowns, and that really limited his upside. And in that case, you'd really like to see him elevate his running game to kind of overcompensate for that. Didn't do that either. 5 carries for 23 yards. Hasn't had more than 30 yards rushing the past couple weeks. Definitely somebody who I'm starting to worry about a little bit, but this is a great matchup. Going up against the Saints, give up on average 26 points to opposing quarterbacks because opposing teams are usually, at least at the beginning of the season, having to throw all 4 quarters against this Saints team, which could put up points in bunches. We're waiting for those Saints to put up points in bunches again, and if that's the case, Cam Newton could have a little bit higher ceiling. But as of right now, that shoulder injury is kind of concerning me a little bit, and they're going to be at home, which is great. I'm just limiting expectations a little bit for Cam Newton. He's been really high up these rankings the past couple weeks, and he really hasn't performed much to get that high. I got him all the way down at number 11 here in Week 15. Number 12 is going to be Matt Ryan of the Atlanta Falcons, coming off a pretty decent game against the Packers where he put up 262 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. Somebody who's been playing great as of late, did have a bad game right there with Baltimore Week 12. But he's somebody who can move up these rankings a little bit at a time the later this week goes. It is a difficult matchup, but it's against the Arizona Cardinals, which a lot of you guys are like, I don't get it. It's the Arizona Cardinals. Right now, they're third against opposing quarterbacks, giving up on average only 17 points a game. Patrick Peterson has that knack of really limiting the top receiver of his opponent, which this week looks like it'll be Julio Jones. So I look for Julio to be slightly more realistic of a number, kind of similar to what we saw last week. Not a huge game. Patrick Peterson is one of the top corners in all of football. This is a solid defense for the Arizona Cardinals. I like Matt Ryan, but I'm just limiting expectations slightly because there's always that chance that Patrick Peterson can shut down a key piece of that passing offense. Number 13 is going to be MitchMagic, Mitch Trubisky, coming off of one of his worst games of the season, actually against the Rams this past week. But that was an overall offensive nightmare for both teams. Mitch only had 110 yards and 1 touchdown to go along with 3 interceptions, which was his worst performance of the season. Now he gets another home game. That was his first game back from his shoulder injury. Comes back a home game against the Green Bay Packers, who are right around a middle-of-the-road type defense against opposing quarterbacks, giving up right around 21 points per game. However, they have allowed 6 passing touchdowns over their last 3 games. If Aaron Rodgers and this offense can continue to score points, it'll force MitchMagic to continue to throw all 4 quarters, giving them that upside for those speedsters, those Tariq Cohens, Taylor Gabriels, Anthony Miller possibly. Some of these other guys that can get the ball in space and do something with it could really help boost the numbers of Mitch Trubisky. Plus, he always has that scrambling upside also. Right now, I have him all the way down at QB 13 just to see if we can get him back to see if he's 100% healthy or not here in Week 15. Number 14 is going to be Baker Mayfield of the Cleveland Browns, and the kid's been playing pretty good football as of late. Did have one bad game there, Week 13, but outside of that, it's been playing great. 238 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions or fumbles last week. Definitely an improved game for Baker Mayfield in a matchup that was somewhat tough against the Carolina Panthers. Now he gets the Denver Broncos. It is a road game going to be in Denver. Denver giving up right around 22 points a game to opposing quarterbacks. Definitely a solid defense. They're not elite. They're not shut down by any means, but they also can't just be had at will in Denver. Baker Mayfield is a solid play in my opinion. Not somebody with an overly high ceiling, but has a safe floor this week, and that's why I have him cracked inside the top 15 right now as quarterback 14. Number 15 is going to be Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills, and not so much for his quarterback numbers, but the rushing numbers alone almost make him a weekly must-start. This past week, he threw for 206 yards. Not bad, however. No touchdowns and 3 turnovers. Now, for most quarterbacks, that would be a disaster of a game. However, he was able to save it by having 9 rush attempts for 101 yards and a touchdown. Gave him a very decent day. Wasn't pretty, but it's what he's capable of. He is now 1 yard short of having 3 straight 100-yard rushing games as a quarterback. Breaking records set by Michael Vick. The kid is playing well. It's going to be a home game against the Detroit Lions, who right now, on average, giving up 22 points a game to opposing quarterbacks. However, Josh Allen has that rushing ability that really doesn't matter what happens in the passing game. Whatever he gets in the passing game is a bonus for most people who play him. I get it. It's Week 15. It's fantasy playoffs. Does Josh Allen need to be in the top of your lineup? Not necessarily, but honestly, as of right now, I trust him more than Kirk Cousins. All right, those are my top 15 quarterbacks for the week here in Week 15. Top 15 in Week 15. Hopefully that was able to help you set your lineups there. If you have any other questions, make sure you hit them up down below. Be on the lookout. Live show Saturday afternoon, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't want to miss that. One of the last we'll have here during the regular season, but I'm sure we'll do them all year long. They're a lot of fun. I love to talk to you guys. Love to interact. Really appreciate the support, and we look forward to talking to you later. Have a good one. Thanks. Bye.